This Choircast show is brought to you in part by the Jonathan_Foster podcast. It's a podcast that lives at the intersection of mimetic theory and open and relational theology, given that your host has degrees in such thinking as well as many of his guests. So if you're interested in helping humanity evolve and take healthy steps forward into non-scapegoating, non-binary, non-violent love, you should check it out. Find the Jonathan_Foster show on all fine podcasting platforms everywhere.
Hey heathens, you're listening to the Deadly Faith podcast, where religion and crime collide. I'm Lola.
And I'm Laci.
And this shit is egregious.
The mind that was in Jesus, that mind is in me.
Without me, life has no meaning.
Why would God tell you what I'm thinking and tell you what I've said to my wife or my husband when you're not around? It's because I'm the pastor of the church and I need to know.
This is the only place where you can see truth.
Wow, look at that word.
It's all I could think, though, on this one.
You're pulling out the big guns. That's a big word. I'm impressed.
That's a 10-point. That's a triple word score kind of thing.
I'm going to pretend like I know what that means. I know it has to do with Scrabble, but like...
Scrabble!
I've never played.
Okay.
I've nenever played. But also, Lola's never played Monopoly. You've never played Monopoly, correct?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Okay, so like...
I can't say shit.
We have our own problems, you know.
I know.
Of us.
When we finally get to meet, we're going to play Scrabble and Monopoly.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Well, before we get started and jump into today's case.
Yes. You had something.
I have to talk to you guys about something, okay? So when we first started this podcast, I think it was episode 2, we were talking about Albert Fish, right? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I made the comment when you said something real, like, gross and disturbing that happened. And I said, my butt puckered.
Oh, my God.
Do you remember me saying my butt puckered?
I can't unhear it. So, yeah, I remember it. Thank you.
And I said it again in another episode. I don't know. I was like, my butt's puckering again.
Yep. No, you said my butthole cringed specifically.
No, I said my butt puckered. I didn't say cringe.
On the second time, I think you said cringed.
Oh, did it?
Or cringed.
Okay, I cringed. That's a word. Well, anyways, I have been informed by my husband and my sister-in-law that when something happens and they like cringe, their butthole does not pucker. So
what does
I
it
have
do?
to ask you, does your goes up? Like you're stopping a turn. Does that not happen to you?
To me, my whole that happens. Yeah,
okay.
No, for sure. That does happen. I had to think about it.
Thank you.
Okay, what does theirs do, though?
I know, right? You're just loosey-goosey over here. You're just like, ugh.
Whip out your butthole and show us what happened. I'm so happy this is explicitly rated.
Right?
This is not family friendly.
We will never not be able to not check the E.
Yep, correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I'm not the weird one. Everyone tell us over on our Instagram, does your butthole bugger?
I can't believe that's how you wanted to start this episode. That's how.
I know what we're getting into. Well, I don't know the case. I just know it's a serial killer because, hello, spooky ooky October. And so I had to start us off on a good note. So you can take us down.
Spooky ooky booty.
Hell.
Okay. Okay, good. Trigger warnings before we begin. This case deals with necrophilia, murder, rape, assault, and incestual illusion.
Ew.
Illusion with an A.
Okay, so when you say sexual, what's the fucking word now?
Sorry, sexual assault?
Incest.
Incestual
Incest.
illusion.
Incestual illusion. So are you meaning like they have the desire and the fantasy?
No. Not illusion with an A, so like alluding to possible incest, but not nothing confirmed, nothing like that. It's just touching around the borders of the incest, so to speak.
Ew.
that face, you said, oh, okay, that's comforting.
Okay, I'm watching Only Murders in the Building, one of my favorite shows. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Selena Gomez. Oh my gosh, it's on Hulu. Only Murders in the Building. It's so good. They're on season 3. Watch it from the beginning. I love it. But in season 3, there's these 2 characters that are producers, and it's the mom and her son. And they like kiss. And she's like, he's gay. He's gay. I can do that. And I'm like, no, you can't. Nope. Stop it.
I'm throwing up.
And there's even a part where he's like, Mom, do you remember what the doctor said to you when I was 8? And she said, yes, that I needed to stop breastfeeding you. What? And do you remember what? I know. And it keeps going. And I was like, what? No, this is too close. I am.
Okay. I'm a proponent for breastfeeding,
right?
Like to like 2, 4?
Yeah.
To 4 maybe? I think that's when I see some people stopping.
Most people stop around 2. If you're going to do it longer, I've seen most people, I'd say 2. Some people will go to 4.
I haven't seen past 4 though.
I haven't seen past 4.
If it's past 4, I think you should consult a doctor anyway.
Yeah, a psychologist, please.
Yes, one of those. The brain doctors. Nope, not a neurosurgeon. I don't know anything.
That is an unhealthy bond. I'm just going to come out and say that. Okay, anyways.
To the story. Let me set the scene. It's July 1982. Headliners and articles read that 2 boys found a dead body on the edge of the Green River in Washington state. Later, it would be discovered this was thought to have been a 16-year-old girl who went missing after leaving her foster home. Her body was found a week later after she'd ran away, strangled by her own jeans and left in the water.
Oh my gosh.
But just wait. Unfortunately, this would not be the only body found. This is the beginning of the hunt to discovering the Green River Killer. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. That's a good intro on that case. Wow. Damn. Also, those 2 boys. Oh, could you imagine?
Yeah. Okay. And I heard conflicting information on that. In some case, in some of the articles I had read, it said 3. Some said 2.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes they would call them children. But what I saw in what seemed like the most credible reports was that they were around 13 or 14. So, I mean, still children, but like...
Shit. Still.
Around teenagery.
Glad they weren't younger, but still, that's a very impressionable age. And to have something that traumatic that you see.
Yeah, for sure. And when you find a body that's in or near water, it's bloated. So it looks even scarier than just a typical, I guess, body.
I totally forgot about that.
I mean, and for this one, I believe she was in the water.
Did they think it was a mannequin? Because most people always say, it's a mannequin. Oh, just kidding. It wasn't.
They didn't say that. And I know the boys didn't touch the body.
Have you heard that?
I have heard that people will think it's a mannequin or like a fake Halloween body kind of thing.
Yeah.
They didn't say that, but they also didn't put any testimony from the boys in any documents that I could find.
Gotcha. They were underage.
They were children. And it was the early 80s.
Just remember, it's never a mannequin. Okay.
It's never a mannequin. Please check. Use gloves if you can.
Right.
Okay, so by August of the same year, 1982, 5 more bodies were found near or in the Green River. King County sheriffs and detectives immediately formed what they called the Green River Killer Task Force. If you're not sure what a task force is, it's fine. It's where a bunch of different people from a bunch of different sectors of law enforcement, psychology, forensics, they all come together to try to prevent criminal activity or target it to a specific geographic point or profile.
You know what? Okay, I know task force. I was like, oh, everyone knows what a task force is. But you just taught me something because I did not realize that, I was assuming that it was just investigators, like a group of investigators that are specifically assigned this case. But when you said psychology, like people in psychology coming onto the task force as well, that makes sense because you need
a profile,
a profiler, and that all makes sense.
It's super cool. Like a task force is a super awesome resource because it's made up of so many different parts. It's very it's dynamic, and it really is. I don't know. It's just impressive to me.
Yeah, and they're putting so much time and energy on that one.
Oh yes,
area of focus. Yeah.
So they formed that task force, which was pretty quick. Mm-hmm. But also they had 6 bodies on their hands. So
yeah, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? So Like I said, this task force was actually made up of 25 experts, and they were all determined to catch this killer, bring justice to the victims, but it would take them 2 decades to find him.
No, wait. That.
Yeah.
And you said this was 1982?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, took them a while. Well, that's an approximation, because not quite like on the dot 20 years, but around 2 decades.
Close enough.
But here's what they knew. This person was most likely a male that targeted runaways, prostitutes, or marginalized women. Specifically young women, but young means different things to different people. The victims, I will tell you, ranged between ages 14 to around 36, they think.
Okay.
So, pretty young, I would say.
It's depending on who you ask. So like in my head, it's like, yes, I see that whole age range as young, because I still consider myself like on the younger side.
Because you fall in that age range. We both do.
Yeah. But if I was like 20 and somebody was like 36, I'd be like, you're older. Yeah, I don't think I would consider you young.
I know. Age is so subjective, especially as you get older.
It is very subjective. Yeah.
Whoever the killer, he would always have sex with them. He would always strangle them, and then he would dump them. Sometimes coming back to visit. ...
No.
I won't go any further into that right now. There were a few suspects right off the bat. One was a taxi driver that frequented the SeaTac Strip, which was just, SeaTac is what they called it. It's, I don't know. It's a city.
Okay.
SeaTac Strip where the prostitutes frequented. A truck driver that had sexually assaulted 2 prostitutes in the area and threatened them with a gun. Now, he hadn't actually, he was violent. It was sexual assault.
Yeah.
But he hadn't killed them, and he was forthcoming with that information. And then 2 criminals in a San Francisco jail, they also confessed to these murders.
What is up with false confessions?
I also, I don't really understand how it tracks, besides like possibly getting more like credibility behind bars, or like maybe thinking if they can give like a false tip, they can lessen the sentence or get a plea deal of sorts.
Or I just thought of this, maybe they want to be in prison.
That is true. Hey, free food, free
3 hot meals and a cot, baby. Like you get health insurance, basically, you get the prison doctors.
They don't let you die.
Yeah, they don't let you die. It's not probably the best, but they don't let you die. They can give you food, roof over your head. You get some fresh air now and then, For some people, that might be better.
You can get a college education in prison, too. Not at the time, but, whatever.
And I'm not saying that those stuff shouldn't be offered for people in prison. The whole point is to get reformed, rehabilitated. So I'm not saying that stuff shouldn't be available, but just wondering if that is a huge motivator for somebody to falsely confess to a crime because they're homeless, or life on the outside of prison is too hard and that seems easier to them.
I hadn't thought about that.
Just a thought.
The only thing I had thought about is I know a lot of people, once they become a prisoner, it is extremely hard to adjust back to civilian life.
Yes.
Especially once you've got that record tacked to you, it's hard to get a job, hard to get housing. Yeah, so with that...
It follows you.
It does. And it's normal. Like once you fall into your routine in prison, because it's just like day-to-day life. You have friends, you have a job, or you have a couple of different jobs in there. When your meal is coming. It's very habitual, and it gives order and structure to a lot of people that didn't grow up with that. So when it's time for them to get released, sometimes they'll freak out and be like, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to go back. Or they'll go into one of those halfway homes, and then they'll realize how difficult the transition is and falsely confess to something to go back.
I can see that.
Super sad.
Yeah.
Please don't falsely confess. There are resources. I know. None of these suspects became persons of interest, as they all had solid alibis, and those false confessions were found out pretty quickly. The timelines weren't adding up for the crime and where they were at the time. So
good.
But they had a last suspect, and his name appeared in 1983, and that was Gary Ridgway. I know. Not much of a mystery.
No, not very much. Mr. Gary.
Mr. Gary.
And this was a year later.
Gare Bear.
Right? Gare Bear.
So in 1983, he was questioned in the disappearance of a prostitute who a witness had claimed gotten into his truck. But Ridgway denied the allegations, and he also passed a polygraph, which back in the day used to hold weight. Now we know it doesn't really.
Right. Back then they were seen as like rock solid evidence.
Which I couldn't really blame them at the time.
As good as a fingerprint, right.
Yeah.
You only know what you know, and science has proven
exactly
and shown that they're not as good as we thought they were.
So detectives actually later discovered a report in 1982 that Ridgway had a prostitute in a parked car, and 2 years later, that body was found. He had tried to strangle her. Didn't work out.
Oh, in the car.
Yeah. It didn't work out.
She survived, but then died 2 years later and found in the river. Okay.
So he eventually was let go, though, because he passed the polygraph. So they were like, okay, moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
But they became desperate for answers because more and more bodies were popping up. And they were all across, like, the Green River. It stretches really far throughout Washington. It's expansive. And so it was becoming hard to pinpoint exactly where this person was at because it was kind of all over. So,
yeah,
Long River, lots of places to go. Amid the whole media rush that was like, Green River Killer, gotta catch him. Like, who is Green River Killer? I hate that they named him, firstly. Like, I get it, but...
I hate when they all have names. I know. We use them, and they're handy,
I get it, but
I hate it. Because you can't call them by their name, you know? Like,
because you don't know their name until you know their name.
Exactly.
It's just annoying because I feel like it still plays into the whole romanticizing serial killers and all that jazz.
It feels that way.
So, But yeah, amid this media rush, the story reached none other than Ted Bundy, who was behind bars at the time.
Oh, Ted Bundy was already out. So BTK was like, this was part of around this time. He was in the prime of his...
The 80s was the time of killing. Also, it was the spike in horror movies that, you know.
70s and 80s. God damn.
If you go back and look at the media back in the 80s, you see a lot of spikes in horror films, and like the audiences really were drawn to those versus like the rom-coms and things like that. So, don't know if that has anything to do with it, but...
And if you remember, this is also around the time of Satanic Panic.
I remembered.
So, like, this is a shit show in the 70s and 80s. Good God.
You can see, like, the panic that's ensuing.
Yes. All
not
around.
Only with law enforcement, but people are demanding for answers. They've got loved ones that are vulnerable to this. They've got their teenage girls that they're kind of locking up at the time. Because there's just panic, not satanic necessarily, I guess, with Green River, but So Ted Bundy, he hears about it, and he wrote to detectives in King County, and he offered up some information on the mind of a killer. And no, he did not ask for anything in return, which was super interesting to me.
Which, to be honest, it's Ted Bundy. What the fuck are they going to give you? They're not going to take time off your sentence. You're not like...
Which is like, and I knew that. And it's like, was this conscience, you know, pulling forward from him, being like...
Or was he waning in the public eye because he'd been in prison for I don't know how long at this point?
That is true. Maybe he wanted to come back on the scene and be like, hey, I'm still here.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, so he offered up, you know, some possible information on the mind of a killer, the motives behind leaving the bodies in the water or strangling them, psychologically, what that could mean, possibly. And he also made a chilling comment that the killer would most likely return to the bodies to have sex with them. And he was right.
And did they know that at this time?
Yes.
But they did not publicize that?
No.
And so Ted Bundy's like, Oh my God. They all think alike.
They all think alike. It's crazy. Yeah.
Ew.
So he was right about that. And he told them to set up a sting operation. He said the killer is probably going to come back around this time frame after killing. So once you find a body, leave it, give him his adequate time, and hide out and just wait. But that didn't work. No one ever came back for.
But they tried it?
I think they did.
Oh
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
From the reports I read, yeah. Seems like they did.
I can understand the desperateness to try this because, again, back in the 80s, they don't have DNA. And so, like, they're not getting anything from the bodies. But, like, I would be freaking out sitting there watching that body because every moment that you leave that body just sitting there, you're losing potential evidence or you're possibly losing potential evidence. So it's like you're taking a major gamble.
Water
just like
is
letting
so
the body
destructive to a crime scene.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's
yeah.
So let's fast forward. It's 1987, and Ridgway he had a thing for the prostitutes, the sex workers, the girls getting that money.
Gary Ridgway.
Oh yeah. Gary Ridgway, okay. He had a thing for him. So he had a couple of, brushes with some known victims and some tips that started to surface. So there was one tip that started with the disappearance of Marie Malvar, I think is how you say her name, Malvar. Her boyfriend at the time, his name is Robert Woods. He saw her, so she was a sex worker, and he knew that. So he
was informed.
Yeah, he knew that she was a sex worker. And he saw her get into a pickup truck on April 30th of 1983. A man that looked between 30 and 40, and he never saw her again. After she got in the truck with that guy, didn't see her again.
Okay.
He reported her missing, but he and her family, they were not idle about this. They went searching for her. They didn't wait for police. So they started looking for that truck because it had like patches of primer on it. It was like kind of unmistakable. And they did find it. They found it. It was sitting in front of the house belonging to the man they had seen her with, which would be Gary Ridgway.
Goddamn, Gary.
Yeah.
You keep popping up in this story, Gary.
So with this tip and the past brushes with some, known victims that were passed, this was enough to get investigators a warrant for his home, his vehicle, and his workplace. However, it didn't pan out. They found nothing.
This is still 1983.
Yeah, they found nothing. At the time, they were dusting for fingerprints. They were looking for fibers like rope, carpet kind of thing. They were looking for hairs.
Trophies.
They were looking for trophies or any possible weaponry. Nothing. But they also had a warrant to get a DNA sample from him. So they got saliva and a sample of his hair. However, technology then was unable to match it because all they had from the bodies was semen. So
and they couldn't.
That correlation between DNA and saliva and hair and semen, and just they didn't have technology then. So
it hadn't gotten that far yet.
But they did keep it on file, which was extremely smart.
Very smart.
I love the thoroughness.
So question.
Yes.
Do we know what the cops said to her family, like when they tried to file a missing persons report? Did the cops take it seriously, or do we know, or no?
They did. I mean, they went on it. Yeah, they were on it the same way that, with the same alertness.
Yeah.
Especially with
because this was already, which makes sense because all the other
there were
victims.
Already bodies. So they were like, sex worker, gone missing. It was.
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah.
But you know how investigators sometimes would say like, okay, you guys sit tight and we're going to go like, talk to people. They would probably talk to this local sex workers and say, hey, did you see her? What kind of truck? Whatever. Like they do their combing of the area and try to maybe get security footage if anyone had it at the time.
Yeah.
Not really a thing back then, but
Probably not.
So with them doing those protocol things, her family just wasn't sitting idly by.
They were like,
that's when they sprung into action because they knew the cost at that point. A sex worker,
They were terrified.
They knew how vulnerable she was. She was missing for 4 days before they reported her.
Oh, shit.
Now, I don't blame him for this. I don't blame Robert for this because I don't know much about her and I'm passing no judgment. But had she been under the influence of drugs, she could have gone to seek them out. There were not cell phones at the time. This was not a super communicative time like that. So
no,
maybe someone had shorted her the money. She couldn't get to a payphone, like there's a multitude of things it could have been that he was probably thinking in his mind.
Yeah, there's multiple, even people who aren't on drugs, just being at this time without having access to a phone like we do today.
Yeah.
It would go multiple days before somebody was not pronounced missing. But
I think I'm tracking she didn't come home.
Yeah.
Because possibly seeking out drugs or passed
I
out.
could agree with you. I think that's a viable option if that's something she was struggling with.
But contact for sure, contacting by phone for sure. If you go several days, even a week without talking to someone, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
We don't blame Robert. He was good. He sprung into action looking for her after he reported her. So, good boyfriend. So, the last murder was in 1998.
Damn.
That was the last one. A year after I was born.
So, we've gone from 1983 to 1988 or 1998.
98, yeah.
Wow.
That was when the last body was found. And it kind of went cold. It had been cold the last little bit, to be honest. I mean,
were there more murders in between 83?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
There were multiple. And they searched thoroughly for evidence on every body. They got semen. They didn't get hairs. They didn't get anything else, really.
God.
And I'll explain it. It all comes full circle in a minute. So more sophisticated testing was coming out, though, in the 90s.
Hallelujah.
We had better DNA testing, thankfully. But it wasn't until 2001 that investigators, they had 2 new methods of DNA analysis. I'll just give you a little bit on that. 2 tests called a polymerase chain reaction test and a short tandem repeat test. This allowed for sequencing and comparison of fragments of DNA. So they didn't need the full strand in order to compare it accurately with other forms of DNA.
So interesting.
They pulled up the saliva and the hair fiber that they got from Ridgway and compared it from several different women, and it was a match.
Shut up. So they knew for years.
They just couldn't do shit about it because of technology.
Fucking pin it on him. Ah.
Now, I know what you're thinking. We're 20 minutes into this. And we've got him, but we don't know jack shit about him, So I'm going to go into that.
Okay, so
I'm going to delve into that. Yeah. So anyway, after the match was made, he was arrested later on in the year.
Okay.
So it wasn't immediate. He was charged with, I know. He was charged with 4 murders initially. That was it.
Okay.
And initially he did claim that he was innocent, as they all do, whatever. But he quickly confessed. There was one investigator that, she was the one that broke him. I forgot her name. Credit where credit's due. I'm so sorry. But she told him, no matter what you've done, Gary, I need you to know that your family will still love you. And he broke down and he confessed.
That's a bold statement too, though. Cause Daddy, I love you. But if it comes out you're a serial killer,
I know.
Sorry, not sorry, but I'm cutting you off. And is it going to be hard? Yes. It's going to be tragic, but
am I still going to love who you were? Yeah.
I'm going to love our fond memories, but I'm not going to love you as a person. I can't do that.
This reminds me a lot of, if you know anything about the Chris Watts case, Shanann Watts, horrible case that happened just a couple of years back. Rest in peace to the victims. But there is footage of 2 investigators that are with Chris and his dad in the final moments before he confesses, and they play it so well. I mean, that female, she's rubbing him on the shoulder saying, what happened? Like, you didn't mean for this to happen. Did Shanann do something? You know, she's really giving him an out, and he took it, you know? Like, she knew how to get to him. Women are amazing.
The way they're like so manipulative in a good way. Like, they know how to...
They can set it up to be a safe space.
Yeah, to get them to actually confess without it being like a false confession. Like, they're not giving leading information or anything like that. They're actually just like, they're playing the psychology game. And I've seen so many interrogations where I'm like, oh, fuck, that worked. Like, wow.
I mean, it's effective for sure. So yeah, this was kind of the same way. She was like, your family is still going to love you. That it's not going to change who you are, Gary, if you just tell us what happened. And that's when he broke. So he stated he wanted to kill as many prostitutes as possible, specifically prostitutes. He targeted sex workers because they're slow to be reported when they go missing.
Right.
Anyway.
Unfortunately.
It's hard to track back who did it, you know? And he just said he hated them. He called them garbage in a couple of interviews. He literally said they were trash. Like, and none of that is true about any of these women.
No.
Yeah. No, they were mothers and daughters and wives and sisters and friends. They were people, you know, and they mattered. They still matter.
Yeah.
So... do you want to know how he evaded detection? Because I have that info.
Oh my gosh. He was a camp counselor. I'm just kidding.
So with the whole, it's the 80s, technology's not that great, but it's still kind of easy to mess up with killing people.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
A lot. If you're going to get away with it for that long.
Right.
So this is what he did. It's so brilliantly horrible and horrifying and egregious.
Oh, gosh.
So he evaded detection for all those years. He would leave gum wrappers. Like, he would find a gum wrapper. He didn't chew gum. He didn't smoke or anything like that. But he would go, like, to a gas station where they had, like, the cigarettes on the, what's it called? That thing where you put, I don't smoke.
I don't either.
That thing.
Ashtray.
Where people, ashtray, that's it, yeah. And he would get those cigarettes that had a bunch of different DNA samples on them. And he would get gum wrappers that he would find just like on the street or at work, out of a trash bin, who knows. And he would leave those at the crime scene to throw off the investigation. And it did, I mean, like, they followed leads on that. It really wasted a lot of manpower and money.
Can you imagine cops showing up at your door? No, cops showing up at your door and be like, sir, why was your gum wrapper found?
Why was your gum wrapper found
by a dead prostitute? What the? And you're like, I was just at the Quick Mart. What?
I mean, I would break down in tears and be like, I didn't do it, but I'm sorry.
The panic. Like, I'm panicking even just thinking about, that is my number one fear, is being falsely convicted for a crime I didn't commit.
Me too.
Oh my God, it's my biggest fear in life.
Yeah, so he did that.
Jackass.
He would always wear gloves. Even some of, like, the prostitutes in the area that would see him pick up girls saw that he was wearing gloves as he would, like, open the door for her.
Red flag, girls. Oh,
girls, if you see gloves, you better run. You better run.
Seriously, no.
And drop a pin with your location with them, please.
Right. So we're also back in the 80s, they didn't have phones, but
I know. Still. Yeah, I know. It was different then. Thankfully now, sex work is, I don't want to say a lot safer, but we can take more precautions now.
Yeah, it's still not safe, but it's in my opinion, as somebody who's never done it before, so take this with a grain of salt, I think it's a lot safer than what it used to be. And
it's a better time now, I think, to be a sex worker. Just because, like, we also have virtual sex work that you can do too.
Yeah, OnlyFans.
Phone girls, my OnlyFans. Like
feet pics or whatever.
The chat girls, chat room girls, love those. So, yeah, it's somewhat safer now to be a sex worker. But he would target, like he said before, he would target the runaways and the prostitutes. When he dumped the bodies, and he would try to put them in the water if he could, because that obviously takes away evidence, especially if they're not found for a minute. Yeah. And there are more remote places that the Green River goes through. So, it may have been easier to conceal some versus others. So he would also cut the fingernails off of the victims if he suspected or knew that they had scratched him, like in a fight.
Son of a bitch.
Also, he would pour battery acid on his arms to hide the marks if they had fought back.
Hold on.
I'm not done.
Wait, before you keep going. He poured battery acid on himself?
On himself.
On himself.
On his arms and hands to, like, conceal it.
Really quick, I'm just gonna Google for shits and giggles the damage, injury from battery acid.
I would think 2nd-degree burns, 3rd-degree burns. I don't know, though.
I would think 3rd-degree burns.
It's the quick Google search on the Deadly Faith pod.
Look at the hand.
Is that a leg?
That's a leg. But then look at the hand.
The hand is black.
Fully black. Oh my gosh.
Now, I don't think he did this super often, though, because there were other ways that he would. Oh my, good Lord.
I don't even think Instagram will let me post this.
Nobody Google that. We Googled it for you. You don't have to look.
Okay, putting my phone down.
We're not linking this in the show notes. It will not be linked.
Google it yourself. He poured that on himself?
So this is one method for what he would do. Also, if he would pull a muscle, bringing the dead body, like lifting it, or if he got scratched, like on the face, where you don't want to pour a battery at. I mean, you don't want to pour it anyway, but whatever. If he got a bruise, something like that, he would report it as a work injury. So every time he got anything like this, the next day at work, he would go report it so that it would be on file as a work injury. So that if police were like, hey, remember when you had this, in this photograph, it would be like, oh yeah, you can go check on my work file. I got that at work. Oh my
gosh, cunning little bastard. I hate to say it, but it's smart.
You'll be more surprised as it goes on.
Okay, so maybe I'll eat my words.
He never told anybody what he did. Never. Not even his wives. Nothing like that. He passed the polygraphs. He also changed tires very frequently. And he never kept trophies. Nothing from them.
That's a first.
It is.
Yeah.
So you want to hear about his childhood?
Oh, God, I'm not sure.
Now that I've told you how he evaded capture for so long.
I have questions. And so we learned with BTK that, you can have a sunshiny childhood and still be a fucking twat, creep.
So I love when you say twat in these circumstances. I hate that word typically, but I tell you, it's well-deserved.
I love that word. Why do you hate twat?
It just feels weird coming off my tongue. I don't know.
So like some people hate the word moist.
I actually like the word moist. I think it's great.
I don't mind. I don't think there's a word that I don't like. I say that now. I probably will find one. But
I like the word blubber.
Blubber. I do like the word blubber. Yeah, I like twat. I really like that word.
We've done a preemptive palate cleanser just now.
There you go.
Okay. Before talking about his childhood, are you guys ready?
Let's get in. To his childhood.
Gary Ridgway. He was born February 18th of 1949 in Salt Lake City, Utah. He grew up in SeaTac, Washington, that same place where that strip was that the prostitutes worked on. He was the middle child of 3 children. And he also had dyslexia, which caused him a bunch of issues during school because
this is
at the time, dyslexia was not cater to.
No, not at all. Probably not even really understood very well.
No. And as an adult, it was actually found that his IQ was 80.
Oh, shit.
Let me, just to give you some perspective also, because I also didn't know anything about IQs at the time. But an average person scores around 100.
Yeah.
So his was low. And think about all the things I just said, how he evaded capture, cutting the fingernails, pouring the battery acid, the work injuries, the gloves, think about that for a moment.
Yeah, because if I'm correct, which I'll Google this and I will correct myself in a minute if I'm wrong, but if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure it's around the 60 mark where it's like a pretty severe mental handicap on an IQ test. So, and he's only at 80. So if us as normal people, we're averaging around the 100 mark. If you remember the case, the boy in the cellar, Stephen Smith, he scored 140 something, I think, or like 150.
Yeah.
Fucking smart. So
that'll give you a nice gauge to think about.
Get a few screws loose.
Little bit. He's parents,
also vastly ugly. And I can say that because he's a serial killer.
Gary Ridgway.
He is fugly. I'm so sorry I am not one to
I agree.
I say that, but I'm so...
So he reminds me of the guy in The Lovely Bones.
Oh. Is that the book you recommended to me?
No. The Lovely Bones.
What is The Lovely Bones?
It is a book, but it's also a film. That's how I came across it. Of a 14-year-old girl that was murdered by her neighbor. And the murderer, Gary Ridgway, and him favor each other a lot.
Oh.
Yeah. I highly recommend that film. It is very cathartic the way it ends.
Oh.
So I highly recommend that film.
We'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah. It's sad, but it has a good resolution. So
okay. We'll link it for everybody.
Back to Gare Bear. His parents often had violent fights in front of him and his siblings.
Okay.
Which is sad.
Very sad.
His father was a bus driver who frequently complained about sex workers near his route.
God damn it.
So
why does the dad got to be a fucking idiot?
He must have planted that seed from an early age.
Right. You are a product of your environment,
Mm-hmm. His mom, she was a sales clerk for JCPenney. Most of her work life was being a sales clerk. And she was not the ideal mother.
Oh, no.
Can you believe it? Mommy issues, killing prostitutes. There's a connection.
Yeah, who'd have thought? So
his mother would engage in inappropriate behavior. Trigger warning. This is where it gets incestuous.
Yeah, no.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. I don't know. So he had a problem with bedwetting, which firstly, that's a major red flag for a lot of people that is a molested child or a sexually assaulted child, whatever you want to call it.
It can also be emotionally delayed, like they're having emotional issues, which can stem from being assaulted. So
could be either. This was a habit that persisted into his early teens. But as he grew up, she would humiliate him for it. She would make a scene about it in front of his siblings, his father, in front of other people. She would humiliate him.
Bitch!
Yeah, every time she found out that he had wet the bed, she would humiliate him. And I believe that she was violent with him in those times.
These are the moments that are so hard for me, but especially telling the stories the way it is, because I already hate the man so bad. But I want to defend childhood Gary, because that's
we can always defend the childhood.
Yes. And I will, no matter what they grow up to be. I will always have space and empathy for them as their childhood, especially if they grew up, to have traumatic stuff happen like this.
Yeah.
BTK, no, he had a fucking normal childhood. He was just a fucking idiot.
Yeah. So here's the other thing. After she would humiliate him, she would then wash his genitals. This was up until the time that he was around
I'm uncomfortable.
16.
I'm uncomfortable.
So from ages like 0 to 16 or 17, every time this happens, and maybe outside of bedwetting, she washes specifically his genitals.
Why?
And you have to know something, that in the midst of puberty, when you have someone touch your genitals, I don't care who they are, a physician, a parent, a friend, a more than a friend, it is arousing. And if it's a parent, it is confusing.
It is very confusing. Your body has a normal reaction, and that even happens to women when they are being assaulted. Your body has the actual physical reaction of pleasure or climaxing sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's a whole nother like fucking mental game that you're like, but I didn't want it, but then my body reacted to it. So then like, was it really rape? It is a whole freaking shit show. So yes, your body.
And yes, it was rape.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was 1,000%. And when I was dating a boy in high school.
Oh, gross.
And my heathen self. I got early high school. And his mom was a massage therapist, and she was like getting her hours. Like she wasn't licensed quite yet. And so she was trying to get her hours. And so she was practicing on, I don't know if she ever did one on me, but she was doing one on her son, and she massaged his back or whatever. And I was standing there, we were talking the whole time. She was very professional. And then when he rolls over, she's treating him like a client. And so she said, it's very normal to, get an arousal if that happens. Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, Mom, stop right now, stop.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, would you like to stop this? Like she did it so professionally. And I am rolling in the other corner, laughing my ass off in the room. It was super funny. But yeah, it's very normal. Like your body's just going to react. Anyways, on that tangent, keep going.
Even like outside of puberty too. Like
yeah.
It happens, but it's just much more intense during and right after puberty. So another note, as a child, he enjoyed shooting birds with a BB gun, not for hunting purposes.
Fucking animal cruelty. Here we are again.
Back to his mom, though. At some point, he began to fantasize about stabbing her.
Oh, no. Yeah. Mommy issues.
So, yeah, he really wanted, he said, I wanted to stab her in the chest specifically, like in the heart.
Wow.
He never acted on this. He never hurt his mother. Through any of this, he never touched her at all. She actually died about 3 months prior to him getting arrested.
Oh.
Which he said, he was like, I'm grateful that she was not here to see this kind of thing, because he felt he would have disappointed her. So many words. You have so many feelings.
I kind of wish she was here. Like
I kind of do too.
I feel bad saying that, but at the same time, like she was a horrible mom, and
she was horrific. Not Mother of the Year by any stretch of the imagination. I have to assume she was probably abused too.
Right.
The cycle, the unfortunate cycle. But that was not an excuse for her to touch him at all in that way.
No. And the way she humiliated him each time he peed the bed. That is
it's already, you're embarrassed in general.
Oh my gosh. You're so, as a kid, you're so emotional when any little thing happens, like the littlest thing, and you're pretty embarrassed for most kids. So I can't imagine, like, his embarrassment must have been off the freaking charts.
I know. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that he fantasized about killing her.
Yeah,
just
not
because
really.
of all the resentment built up. But yeah, he never did. However, his first victim was a stab victim. So, his whole MO was have sex with them, strangle them to death, and then dump them in the river, and then come back and have sex again. But before that, I think he was in his teens when this happened. I don't want to say exactly when, but he stabbed a 6-year-old boy in the woods.
Wow.
He stabbed him so deeply that it went into his liver.
Man.
Now, the 6-year-old boy survived.
Thank God.
He has remained anonymous through the years.
Good.
Don't try to figure out who it is. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
Yes, he's probably still alive, but Yeah, he said he was lured into the woods, and he realized years later when he saw his face on TV, he's like, oh my God, I was his first victim.
That's got to be so scary.
I know. Yeah. He spent considerable amount of time in the hospital because he was sick and stabbed in the liver. Are you kidding me? So, but he was okay. He turned out like everything was fine physically, but that still sucked. And that was the only time he ever stabbed anybody. After that, it was full out strangle. He didn't use like typical weaponry kind of thing. He used rope. He used their own clothes on them to just like that first girl, her jeans were used to strangle her. But
if I had to guess why he did this, and you might agree or have a different theory, is stabbing people is very messy. It's very bloody. And that leaves trace evidence. That leaves blood evidence that could get on you. And so strangulation is cleaner. And unfortunately, you can get away with it.
Strangulation is a lot more controlled.
Yeah, way more controlled. Yeah, for sure.
Don't go strangle people after you hear this podcast. I swear to God.
Yeah, like this.
I shouldn't have to say that. It's just like Bo Burnham. I didn't think I'd have to write that one down for you guys.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So years after this, he graduates from Tyee. I think that's how you say it, Tyee High School in 1969. At the age of 20.
Damn.
Ridgway also served a 2-year stint in the United States Navy. And he was in Vietnam and he did see action, unfortunately. So that had to be very difficult. In the time that he was in the Navy, he solicited sex workers. I tell you, this man, he loved and hated the sex workers. So
I was about to say, like, you are screwing them, but you're also killing them. Like, you can't.
And he didn't kill them. Yeah, he didn't kill them in the Navy also. I need to clarify that. I know I've told you that it was around 1970, but I just want to reiterate, he didn't kill any of these sex workers that he solicited.
Okay.
Yeah, so actually, at a certain point, after soliciting multiple sex workers, he contracted gonorrhea and became extremely angry at sex workers.
Oh, shit.
So it was just like building to this horrible point because he had already heard from his dad that sex workers were horrible. And then he was mad at his mom. He was mad at women probably. And then a woman gave him a disease,
Yeah. So it was like one hatred on top of another.
Yeah. So he came home from the Navy and he settled in the Seattle area. And when he came home, so he married his high school sweetheart, firstly, before he was sent overseas.
Poor woman.
He got married very young. And he came back and was settling in Seattle, and he learned that she had cheated on him.
Aww.
Now, he had also been,
Right, he was sleeping with prostitutes, so.
Yeah, he was cheating with sex workers, too. So, like, this, come on, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, so when he learned that, they got divorced. He was devastated. He started working as a truck painter. So remember Robert Woods, the boyfriend that reported his girlfriend missing?
Yes.
After 4 days? He was looking for the truck with primer on it.
Right.
And this is probably because he had access to primer and he was like fixing stuff on his own truck. Because he was a truck painter. So.
Making the connections.
Yes. So for 30 years, he did truck painting. They must have treated him well then.
Right.
He married 3 times.
Okay.
3 times. It was not the charm.
I'm not shocked he had marriage is hard. So we're just going to come out and say that marriage is not the easiest. And divorce is okay. It's nothing to be ashamed about. But can I understand why this man probably had 3 divorces? Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. You could probably guess that there's some infidelity happening. So the first wife, the high school sweetheart, Claudia Craig Barrows. So they both had affairs and then got divorced. It was a short marriage. I think only 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Second wife was Marsha Lorraine Brown. Ridgway had cheated on her. He had also once placed her in a chokehold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank God he got out of that.
She told officers that he always wanted to talk about sex. He would often request sex from her, or like in public places, like really taboo kind of things. We say taboo. Think about the time, guys. I know.
Right. Yeah.
I've had sex on top of my car outside. Like, I don't think twice about it, but like.
That's funny. Okay, this is where we are complete opposites, because like it freaks me the fuck out, like having sex anywhere that's not
besides your bedroom or like your house.
Okay, story time. My husband's probably gonna be like, "What the fuck? Why are you telling this story?"
Her husband's our biggest fan too.
He really is. Okay, so when we were together but not married, I think we were engaged at this point. We didn't have sex until we were married because, you know, Christianity. But we did do like a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I lived with his sister, and he lived with a bunch of guys. And so we went out to a park one night really late. We were watching a movie on like a little portable DVD player. One thing led to another. And next thing you know, we're feeling and touching. Okay. You catch my drift? Right. Well, then all of a sudden there's like these bright ass fucking lights that turn on.
No.
It was a fucking cop.
Stop. I've been there before.
I was so fucking terrified. I was like, oh my God, we're going to get in so much trouble. Like we're rushing to like, you know.
They literally just tell you to go somewhere else.
We were like rushing to like get ourselves decent. And the cop comes up to the window and he's like, hey, do you have your wallet? And Tyler was like, I'm so sorry. I left my wallet at home. He did not. He had his wallet with him. But he was like, I'm not about to give him my ID. And so he was like, well, I know you guys are just watching a movie because like your belt, you can see your belt on the side. And I was like,
spicy
boy. We drove away and we were like, oh my God, that did not just that. We were so embarrassed. But yeah, I don't think anyone in his family ever has heard that story. I'm pretty sure nobody's heard that story. So
well,
congratulations,
you're all welcome.
Yeah,
you're
so we're
welcome.
opposite. I'm very, my purity culture trauma has very much made me more vanilla than...
Purity culture made me a slut.
You didn't really. It's made me come out. It made me come out more now that I'm deconstructed. But
at first I was not. I was very like anti-sex. And then the more that it was like taboo, the more I wanted to, you know, do it or like come close to the line, I guess, of penetration kind of thing. So
exactly.
And so it just during college, that's when it was like the height of my slutitude. But but that wasn't very long because then I got married.
That one.
Well, married to that guy.
That's what I meant. Like not marriage in general, just married to that guy.
I'm going to be married. It's just someone that's so much healthier and better.
We like the new one.
We love marriage, but it's hard.
It is hard.
Circling back to Marsha.
Yes, let's go back to Marsha. Poor Marsha. Okay. Glad she got out of that.
Yeah, she also, so she said, you know, he put her in a chokehold once. He always wanted sex. She said that he both hated and loved the sex workers local to their area. He would mock them, but she said, I could always tell that he wanted to be with them kind of thing.
Oh,
he was always thinking about sex and like, she was just not that sexually driven, you know?
It's funny that she was able to tell that he wanted to be with them. Like,
I know.
Was it a look in his eyes? Was he really that creepy?
You know, as a wife, I think you just have that sense of like, you know,
intuition
when they want to do something like, you know, that look in their eye that's just a little bit different that only you would notice kind of thing. So,
right.
He would also cry during or after sex. She took note of that and how that was very odd to her. And she like didn't know what to do with that information.
Yeah, same.
It screams sexual trauma. It screams, my mom tried to do me kind of thing.
And I can imagine, because my mom tried to do me. I can imagine not having a high sex drive and like not wanting to sleep with your husband very much if he's crying.
If he's crying,
that would be the biggest fucking turnoff. I'd be like, go see a therapist because like you're freaking me out. I'm sorry. That's you're okay.
Yeah, he cheated on her with sex workers. Duh. So their marriage also was not super duper long, and they got divorced. His third wife was, I want to say, his favorite. Her name was Judith Lorraine Lynch. She figured it out. That he was killing right under her nose after police came to question her. So he was arrested and she was like, what? It's not him. He's the sweetest man alive kind of thing. And the more that they told her, she was like, oh my God, connecting dots. Like,
yes. Okay. So she didn't know until after he was arrested. Okay.
She didn't know until after. But she also, and I don't want anybody to come for her saying that she's conceited for this comment because I fully believe her. And I really do think that she's correct in what she said. She said that she believes that she saved many girls in the end just because she loved him. Oh. And there's evidence of that. His murder spree slowed down significantly during their marriage. Wow. I mean, he was borderline not really killing anymore. Because the last body found was in 98 and they were still together up until the time that he was arrested in 2001. So.
Wow. I wonder what it was.
He said, I felt less of an urge to kill when I was with her. They had a pretty healthy relationship, all things considered. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't perfect. I don't know. He seemed like the ideal husband to her. He was a good man to her. He never put her in a chokehold. He never forced sex on her, apparently. I mean, she really was just showed him the kind of love that he said he had never had before.
Wow. That is so interesting.
So I think that we should give credit there where she said, I think that I saved girls. I think she did. And I thank her for that.
If you look at this, the killing spree, it lines up.
Yeah. He had a son with Marcia. Not with Judith so with the second wife, Marcia.
Second wife, okay.
Yeah, so despite the divorce, he remained involved and his name was Matthew. Nobody bother Matthew. He's doing good.
Okay, good. Leave him alone.
Leave him alone. Yeah, he remained very involved with Matthew. Even though the divorce and everything, it was 50-50 custody. I mean, he was trying to be father of the year. When Matthew was, I think, 5 or 6, he was quite small. Gary had taken Matthew to the site of one of the murders where the body was. But Matthew was asleep in the truck. I think they were in between going somewhere and he stopped by the river, left the truck running, left Matthew in the truck and went and had sex with the dead body as Matthew slept. I know.
There's just no words.
Also, Gary often showed pictures of his son to unsuspecting victims. So his whole thing was oh, look at my son. I'm a father. I'm a good guy. It would gain trust with them. And so that would be part of luring them into the truck with him.
Fucking asshole.
So I'm sure that's not something so easily reconciled.
No.
With your child. And honestly, I hate even having to tell Matthew's trauma because it's not even my story. But
right. It's part of the case.
I want you to know the gravity of this person would even use his child's photo.
Right.
To lure victims. So Matthew was actually serving in the Marines at the time of his father's arrest. If you want more information on Matthew, you can watch Sins of the Father, the Green River Killer documentary, but please do not attempt to contact Matthew as he is not to blame for what his dad did and does not need to be hounded with questions. He's given information to police.
He's given interviews.
Yeah, he's done his thing. He's doing good. He's thriving now. So Now, this is called deadly faith. So let's talk about faith.
I was going to ask, I was like, where are we going with this one?
I got you. Okay, so he was a religious man.
All right.
He didn't grow up in the church.
Okay.
Necessarily. But he... It's such a weird contrast. Religious man solicits sex workers.
But honestly, it's
not that far of a stretch, though.
You know? Yeah, it's like not at all.
I need everyone in the in Decatur Highway Church of Christ to know, all of you elders and deacons, I know that you watch lesbian porn. And I know that you paid for it sometimes.
Wait,
I don't know that. I don't know that for sure.
I was about to say, did somebody get a hold of somebody's bank account?
There were such creeps in that church that I attended as a child. I know for certain that some of them had a tendency to watching porn, most likely. So,
which, in my opinion, nothing against porn. It's just the hypocrisy.
No. Oh, and we love ethical porn. We love a female producer for porn.
There we go.
We love that. We support that. If it's ethical, if it's consensual, we love that. So that's okay. Gary's second marriage with Marsha. I swear, Marsha got the butt end of everything.
Everything.
He became part of the Pentecostal church during this marriage and would often go door to door proselytizing or reading aloud from the Bible.
Can you imagine? Knock, 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 Saturday morning. You haven't even gotten 6 sips into your fucking coffee. And there's a man on your doorstep, not just wanting to talk to you about Jesus, but before you even get to the door, he's already reading from the Bible.
He's just reading.
What the fuck?
And he would always read aloud. He even, he did this at home and at work too. He would just bring his Bible out and start reading out loud.
So weird.
I feel so bad for Marsha too, because he insisted that she must strictly follow the Bible and their pastor's teachings.
But he doesn't have to?
No, he doesn't have to. Of course not.
Of course.
No. And he can talk about sex and mock the sex workers and lust after them. That's fine,
Fuck him and kill him later. He doesn't have to follow the rules.
He was dead set he had to have a Christian wife.
Yeah.
He would become tearful after hearing sermons or reading scripture.
What?
He became tearful over sex and scripture. I just think that there's some type of connection there.
Your brain has problems. Wow.
So he would get super emotional. He would be touched deeply by sermons in prison, actually. He was pastored to by a Christian sheriff. There's a whole article written on this sheriff and how he's like, I know that he's a killer. I realize the gravity of what he did. But as a Christian man, I just felt that I needed to witness to him. And I don't really blame him for it. But the Christian sheriff, he said that he had kind of witnessed to him about the good that he had gotten from a relationship with Jesus.
What the sheriff got.
Understanding. Yeah. The sheriff was telling his own testimony kind of thing. And he said that Gary had started crying and he wrote a note and handed it to him and it had a prayer written on it. I don't know what the prayer was, but he admitted to being a sinner. He admitted to everything he had done and he asked forgiveness from God. I mean, nobody could profile him. Nobody can profile him because he has emotions that he taps into.
Yeah.
But he's calculated, but he's got a low IQ. But it's so many conflicting parts of him that it's hard to make sense of everything. But you know that there are pieces of this story that are missing. And I don't know if he'll ever share those pieces of because he's not a deconstructed Christian or anything like that. He still holds to Christian values to this day.
Here's my thing. This man, and I've seen this in many cases. Chris Watts, for example, we already brought him up.
Yeah.
These men that like get into prison, after committing murder, and they all of a sudden find Jesus, but people ignore the fact that the person knew Jesus and knew Christianity or religion prior to committing these heinous crimes and still did it. So like, were they forgiven and allowed? And this is me just going on a tangent and going on my own little rant, which people are going to disagree with and have their own opinions on, especially if you still subscribe to Christianity. But was he not saved then? And how do you know that this is like his true salvation after being in prison? And like, so this sheriff's testimony was so moving that like that changed him. And everyone's like, oh, see, now he's a Christian. Are you fucking kidding me?
Now he's good.
No.
In 2003, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you how the rest of this plays out. So in 2003, he accepted a plea deal in which he was sentenced to 48 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. In addition to this plea deal, he agreed to reveal the location of undiscovered bodies. It is speculated that he's responsible for many more deaths. He did confess to 80. He said it was probably upwards of that.
What the fuck?
But he said that he'd lost count.
You lost count. You killed so many people, you lost count.
Because they weren't people to him. They were trash to him.
Oh my gosh.
Not that that's the reality, but his reality was that they didn't matter to anybody and that they wouldn't be missed.
Did he say, was he killing the prostitutes for any religious reason? He didn't say that. He was just
He didn't say why. He just said he hated them. He didn't say, I pretended they were my mom. He didn't say, I was doing God's will. There was no other reason why except I hate sex workers.
Wow.
And I don't think that he has the ability to understand like what that actually means, like to dig his heels into why do I hate them? It's not just that I hate them. It's that there are other things around that need to be dealt with.
Because the why goes into gray area. It's not a black and white answer. And so I'm wondering if he's more of a black and white, thought process type person. Because if you have to dig into that gray area, that can be really hard for some people.
And there are multiple documentaries on the Green River Killer. He doesn't take media requests. He hasn't in a very, very long time, like very, very long time. So it's difficult to get any more information from him directly. But, there are documentaries. I'm not sure if they had people go in and try to speak to him, just like investigative reporters. But like near 2003-ish when he was convicted and sentenced. Maybe there's more information in those two. I watched a couple of them, but there are so many documentaries on the Green River Killer because we still can't figure him out. Quick thing. In his last days of the sentencing, obviously the victims' families, they get a chance to say their piece on behalf of themselves and the victim if they want to. And a lot of them did, but one stood out to me. This one. Take it how you want, but there was a father, Robert Rule. He lost his daughter, Linda Jane Rule. And Rule told him, Mr. Ridgway, there are people here who hate you, and I am not one of them.
Wow.
You've made it difficult to live up to what I believe and what God says to do, and that is to forgive.
Oh, God.
But you are forgiven. And that was it.
Oh, shit.
After he said that to him, because there were 4 other people before Mr. Rule that went up there, and they were just like, you've taken everything from... Now, this is fine.
Absolutely.
They are allowed to say these things. It is justified. They can say whatever they want. They can reach across there and try to strangle him, and it still would have been justified, I think. Don't strangle people. But in that case where it's so emotional, it's emotionally charged, they're saying I hate you, I hate what you did. The whole time he is all reports say he is stone cold, does not give a shit. And then when Robert Rule came up there and said those things to him and then just said, you are forgiven, and left, he broke the fuck down. He started crying.
That's so strange.
I know. I don't know anything. It's like when you bring Christ into it, when you bring his like belief into it, he's just completely convicted in that moment. You know?
So weird. It's so freaking interesting.
Yeah.
I want to say that the people who spoke before this man who said this forgiveness, from somebody who is trauma informed, their victim impact statements were probably more cathartic for them and more therapeutic than this man. And I don't mean that in a judgmental, like rude way, but it's just the reality of it, especially if he is subscribed to religion and it is his religion that is telling him that he needs to forgive. It makes me feel like he hasn't really processed through those emotions. I could be wrong. Maybe he has, and this was very cathartic for him to do it in this way. But in a grand scale and looking at it from multiple people who feel forced into forgiving because it's their religion that's telling them to, they do not process through their emotions. And it's more traumatic because they're not able to actually sit with and investigate and let themselves feel anger. And anger is one of those things that Christianity and other religions are like, oh, it's a negative emotion. It's not okay to sit with, or it's not okay to have. You're sinning if you're angry. When anger is a very healing emotion. And that's one of the things I tell my clients in trauma recovery is if you are feeling angry, that is okay. Because a lot of people are like, how do I get over this? I'm like, you just continue to keep sitting with it.
Don't go through it.
Go through it. Let yourself be angry. Let yourself feel it. And if it takes time, let it take time because it's all part of the healing process. And so I have a big problem when people feel like they have to forgive.
I know.
Not saying that wasn't cathartic for that man. It probably was in some way, shape, or form. It could have been the best thing he could have done for himself. Everybody heals differently, and that's fine. But if your religion is telling you that you have to forgive somebody in order for you to move on,
you don't have to. And that's probably wrong.
Exactly. You don't have to.
Probably inaccurate.
I had to say that.
No, I mean, that's powerful and super true. And I mean, like, we can't speak to his own truth, but
correct.
In general, it's a good thing to note that, like, you don't have to, your forgiveness isn't linear.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to fit with your religious beliefs for you to still be a religious person and a good person. So
exactly.
Today, Gary Ridgway is serving in Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington. Yes, that's a real city,
yes,
Walla Walla.
Yes, it is.
Which is super weird saying that. I feel like I can't say it with a straight face. He is in solitary confinement.
Awesome.
He is not allowed into Gen Pop for his own safety, and he is also dealing with medical issues now. So, yeah.
Bummer.
Real quick, before we go into whatever else we want to go into, I want to say the victims' names and ages. I want to go ahead and do that. These are just the ones that were identified. These were not the other, him admitting to 80. You know, we don't have those. We don't have the bodies. We don't have the names. So,
yeah.
Okay. The victims that we have identified. Wendy Lee. Oh, this is in order.
Okay. Of the killing.
This is in order of the killings.
Okay.
So, Wendy Lee Caulfield or Cofield, 16. Giselle Ann Lavorne, 17. Deborah Lynn Bonner, 23. Marsha Faye Chapman, 31. Cynthia Jean Hines, 17. Opal Charmaine Mills, 16. Terry Renee Milligan, 16. Mary Bridget Meehan, 18. Deborah Lorraine Estes, 15. Linda Jane Rule, 16. Denise Darcel Bush, 23. Shonda Leah Summers, 16. Shirley Marie Sherrill, 18. Rebecca or Becky Marrero, 20. Colleen Renee Brockman, 15. Sandra Denise Major, 20. Wendy Stevens, 14. Alma Ann Smith, 18. Dolores Laverne Williams, 17. Gail Lynn Matthews, 23. Andrea M. Childers, 19. Sandra K. Gabbert, 17. Kimmy Kai Pitzer, 17. Marie M. Malvar, 18. Carol Ann Christensen, 21. Martina Teresa Authorley, 18. Cheryl Lee Wims, 18. Yvonne Shelley Antosh, 19. Carrie Ann Rois, 15. Constance Elizabeth Naon, 19. Kelly Marie Ware, 22. Tina Marie Thompson, 21. April Dawn Buttram, 16. Debbie Mae Abernathy, 26. Tracy Ann Winston, 19. Maureen Sue Feeney, 19. Mary Sue Bello, 25. Pammy Annette Event, 15. Delise Louise Plager, 22. Kimberly L. Nelson, 21. Lisa Yates, 19. Mary Exetta West, 16. Cindy Ann Smith, 21. Patricia Michelle Barczak, 19. Roberta Joseph Hayes, 21. Marta Reeves, 36. Patricia Yellow Robe, 38. Unidentified white female, ages between 12 to 17. Unidentified white female, age 36. That's 49.
Jesus Christ. There were so many teens. And I lost track how many times I heard 14.
14 and 15. Those are the ones that got me. I mean, they all got me. It doesn't matter what age you are. You don't deserve to die, especially for being a sex worker. But
I just think my niece is 15. What could be going on in these poor women's lives that pushes them to sex work?
At that age, yeah.
At that age. Oh, God, it breaks my heart.
Because that's not consensual, you know?
Not
they had to be like runaways, homeless, you know, it's just...
Oh, gosh. Trafficked. Like, we don't know. We don't know their stories.
We don't know. All we have are names and ages, you know, and we've got their families that are still alive to maybe tell us more about them, you know. Please don't try to contact their families. Let's not make them relive trauma. But I just wanted us to hear their names because they're not just victims. They're real people. They were real girls that had real desires and dreams. And, you know, maybe in another life, they get that tenfold.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what I hope for.
I do too.
That's what they deserve.
I do too.
So that's a hard one. And I just can't figure this guy out. I can't get it.
I go back and forth with like, okay, was it, you know, nature versus nurture? That's like an argument, not really an argument, but like a discussion, a debate of sorts that's happened for years. And you look at like BTK from last week, okay? It was definitely...
She's not over BTK if you can't tell.
I'm not over this guy. I
get that.
I can't imagine. Well, and he has ties. I didn't say this last week, but he has ties to the Idaho murders. The guy...
Great.
Yeah, the guy who did the Idaho murders was taught by Catherine Ramsland, who was the woman who researched BTK. He took a class of her. So it's like they have this like roundabout weird tie to him. And so it's, yeah. But if you look at it, okay, BTK, he was, it was definitely nature. Like,
yeah,
he grew up in a solid home. He didn't have head injuries. He was a average person. Like there was nothing that you could point to be like, that makes sense. But
that was it.
But then you have somebody like Gary and it's just one thing after another. Like, was it a combination? I have the opinion for him. It was a combination of both because I don't feel like growing up in that kind of household is going to turn you into a sadistic serial killer who has, you know, rapes people and then has sex with dead bodies. Like plenty of people grow up in crazy traumatic homes and don't turn out this way. So it's like, is it nature? But then living in that kind of childhood and having that kind of trauma, does it just exasperate? Exacerbate?
No, exacerbate.
Exacerbate. There you go.
That thing.
What's already there, you know? So I don't know.
It's yes and no. And I so badly wish that he still took media requests.
Yeah.
Not that I don't really know if it would give any other answers, or if like maybe at this point in his life where he's close to like, I don't want to say death, but like he's not doing well physically apparently. So maybe on his deathbed, would he come out and say like, yeah, my mom did rape me? Or I don't know. Yeah, religion made me feel like I had to have control over a woman.
Right.
Who knows? It's just, I wish we had those answers and we may never get them. And that I know already haunts the victims' families because even with the closure of, okay, we know who did it. We know when it happened. We have their body kind of thing. It's still, there's still the aching of not really knowing the full picture of what happened in the mind.
Like, why? But at the same time, I wonder, does he even know why? If it is more of nature and it's something that has just been in him from a child, he can't tell you why because it's always been there.
He doesn't have the capacity to also like I said earlier, dig his heels in and really question and maybe become more self-aware of.
Right, exactly.
And maybe he's afraid to peel back the curtain. A lot of people are.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's necessary if you're committing crimes.
Especially crimes like this. Like, okay, let's peel back those layers there, bucko. Like it's...
I think he blames himself, probably. Okay, wait. He should be blamed for the murders. Pause. I think he blames himself for not being good enough in the eyes of his mother.
Yeah.
And I think possibly seeking out religion made him feel like if I follow the rules of religion, I can be good enough for God, good enough for my pastor, good enough for my wife. But I think he's maybe still comparing himself to the humiliating him with the bedwetting and that kind of thing. She probably humiliated him in other ways, but...
Of course. And then not having therapy, not knowing how to process that or get over it, and it's always there. Yeah, it's all valid theories, in my opinion.
I don't want to end this on him, though, because this isn't about him. This is about the girls.
Yes.
I don't care if they were sex workers or not. I don't care if they ran away.
And I will tell you right now, if anyone ever comments anything negative, like victim shaming, or anything like that, about any victim, but especially like sex workers on our Instagram or any of our social medias,
you will get
or whatever,
so blocked.
You will get blocked so goddamn fast. You won't even know what happened.
You won't know what happened.
I don't know what hit you, buddy.
Because this was not their fault. They were doing what they could to survive. They were doing what they could to try to thrive and push themselves forward in a better direction.
And a fucking white man came in and fucked it all up.
And a fucking white man. When you guys see the pictures that we post too, you'll be like, oh my God. Even when he was younger, he just wasn't that attractive. Let's be honest. Like,
I would rather fuck a dumpster on fire.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm 1,000% serious. Yep.
I think I would too. Yeah.
Yep. Raw dog, a cactus. So many better options.
I wonder if he ever got treated for gonorrhea.
No. I don't really care. I hope he didn't.
But yeah, that's our case.
Yeah. Let's do a palate cleanser.
Let's do a palate. Yeah. What is heck versus hell?
Okay.
You texted me that earlier, and I've got to know what you mean.
We always are like, oh, that's a good palate cleanser, but then we'll forget it by the time it's time to record. So we text each other reminders. And so funny. So I wanted to read you guys this post because I thought it's hilarious. It said, Satan opens up heck. It's a lighter version of hell. What kinds of torture are in it? Someone comments, you eternally have to wear socks while walking on the wet floor.
No.
Someone else comments, people pull in front of you on the highway and go really slow.
Oh my God.
You're stuck driving behind a school bus for eternity.
Somebody stop.
Somebody else goes, no matter how many times you flip it, the USB won't go into the computer.
Oh my God. That's the one.
Your pillow will never be cold.
Oh, here's another one. Whenever you touch any microfiber towel, your skin will always snag on it. Uh-huh.
I fucking hate microfiber.
Or anytime you touch any towel, it will do that.
I hate it.
That would be another layer of heck.
I just thought that was hilarious. A lighter version of hell.
I love it. That's so dumb.
So good.
That's a nice laugh.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys, for bearing with us.
Yeah, we have to get some good laughs in at the beginning and the end of today's episode. And we'll try and do that for the next couple because, Jesus Christ, we're taking you guys down some very dark holes, basically, with these serial killers this month. But it's highly interesting, I have to say. I've learned a few things and I trust nobody. Let's just put it that way. I trust no one.
I just want to add this on here. If you go to nchrc.org, there's something called North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition. There's a lot of things like this, but it is that there's a certain page that is geared towards sex work, and it has safety tips.
Nice.
So if you guys need some safety tips, they offer some myths and some facts on here. There's other resources like this. This is not the only one. But it'll say stuff like, in the street, use the buddy system, warn each other of violent dates or dates that do not pay. You need to report everything. And it also talks about rape, the things that you should do if it happens, if you can do these things. Personal safety, making sure that Johns always wear condoms. Negotiating is not, don't negotiate on any of that stuff and stuff like that. So it's chock full of some good information.
Well, you said nch.org?
nchrc.org.
RC. Okay. And we'll link that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. The more you know.
Perfect. Yes. Be safe. The more you know, the better you go. I don't know why I said
the more you know, the better you go.
I have no idea what that meant. I'm tired. It's been a long case. And Gary, I don't like Gary. And Gary fucked my brain up. And I need to go eat a moon pie and drink some 7-Up and don't go murder people.
It's weird knowing that certain serial killers are still alive with us to this day.
The two we've covered, I don't know about your next one, if he's alive. My next two, I think, are dead.
No.
My next two were...
I'm pretty sure my next one's dead. I'm hoping so, but we'll see.
Anyways, that's the case.
Great. Yeah. Love that. All right, guys.
Don't join a cult.
We love you. Don't do anything illegal and have a nice day.
Bye.
Also, heathens, if you're enjoying the show so far, please remember to subscribe on whatever platform you listen to us on and leave us a review because your salvation depends on it. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, leave us a review because we would absolutely love it. Deadly Faith is brought to you by Choircast Network. It's produced by Laci Bean and Lola Robbins and audio engineered by Eric Howe. Thanks for listening.